G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm XQ, joined today by Badges from the UK, SA from the USA. I don't know why I said it like that, I just did. Yeah. So we're going to be doing command and control today. What is the episode we're doing? And who picked this one? I'm trying to remember who picked it. I think kind of started out with something you said, but you kind of... Is that how it worked?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we doing?
Yeah, so we're taking a look at the Polaris, seeing as it's in the middle of its rework. We want to take a look at the Polaris. This will be one of two. We want to have a look at how we're going to take it out, and then how we're going to protect it in the next one.
And we're using, the one we're using here will be used in the next episode. So whatever fleet we used to attack it, that's the fleet that we assumed that we were defending against. Is that correct? Well, that's how I did it anyway, so yeah.
It is now.
Well, let's hope I got it correct. All right, so who's first cab off the rank? Essay, I think you're the first cab off the rank. So what was your... I guess we'll flick it over to the browser and you can tell us what you're thinking. All right. What were you thinking, Essay?
So, generally speaking, so what is the Polaris? The Polaris is basically a glorified space sub. You know, it's designed to get in, sneak in below low signature, move quickly, and evade and attack. So to be able to look for something like that, basically you need to create a sub-hunting group. And I took this from the approach of the fewest number of ships with the least number of personnel required to be able to find and successfully take out a Polaris. So this fleet is not self-sustaining. It would have to be based off of a carrier or out of a base. It's not particularly long range, but it would have the ability to hunt. So the first two things were the selections, and I think we probably all have these, are the Terrapins. Terrapin right now is in the strongest place to do this type of operation. It's what it's designed for. I selected two only because of the redundancy. There's a lot of redundancy in this with the two of each type of ship. That way, if they need to spread what we would call in Spectrum spread eyes, they can actually go to different parts of the sector to be able to have a larger scanning pool. Then I went with the Sentinels. Oh, sorry. Let me do the Mantis first. So the Mantis I selected, it would be part of this fleet, but obviously not a combat ship. But the idea is that once you find a Polaris, if it can run away, if it can jump away, then there's no point of even going through this exercise. So once you find it, the Sentinels would move in using the e-warfare suites they have in the missiles to be able to take out as many of the guns, or at least disable the weapons as much as possible. Attempt to hack into the ship if possible, to be able to prevent it. Drop systems. I was looking at an EMP for a while. I think the EMP missiles would not do much to Polaris, but could potentially affect the turrets.
Maybe hit it in the right spot. Maybe it would. I don't know.
Yeah,
we don't have it in game, so that's a hard one to call, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But I mean, they're better EMP possibilities in ships, but those require you to get in close and tight. And if you're chasing a Polaris, those are a lot of guns to get close to, and there's a lot of speed there. So once the Sentinels have done their job and hopefully disoriented the Polaris, the Eclipses would come in, preferably on the 6, to take out the engines. The Mantis would potentially move in as well right after to put up its fields and be able to disable it, or keep it from getting away. The Eclipse, I was looking at you could use a Retaliator, you could use something larger, you could use another Polaris, but the Eclipse to me, just the sheer size of those torpedoes, I don't even think it would take two. I think one could disable the engines in the systems of a Polaris, but redundancy, it's better to have two in case one gets taken out. So that was my approach.
Yeah, okay. Any pros and cons there, Badges, that you can see? I can see one, but only one. Or two, actually, if I think about it. You're muted, Badges.
Sorry. Yeah, it's one of those things that I like the fact that everything's doubled up, aside from the Mantis, and I think if I would make an adjustment, it would be that.
Same here.
And it's going to be something that I'm going to make with my fleet as well, because I've got I haven't doubled up on everything, so it's going to be a weakness throughout, I think. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Polaris is the more you look at it, the more you realise just how capable it is. It's got missile turrets that will help it deal with swarms of fighters. It's got some really big guns. It's got whopping great torpedoes. So there isn't a very simple one-dimensional kind of solution to the Polaris, unless you're going to go up to something really big like a Javelin.
Yeah.
And even then, maybe not. You know, I think here you've got the best chance. And I think the ace in the hole here are those two Vanguard Sentinels, because E-Warfare, very basically, you've got, the Polaris has got exceptional, I think it's got a capital scanner, is it? Capital, so it's able to see a lot further than other ships of its size, and it's able to figure out what stuff is sooner. So the more you can do to confound that, the better. And the nice thing about this is you do multi-axis, so you can have jamming from two directions. Because if you're being jammed, you generally know where it's coming from. It's like someone trying to shout and put so much noise down that you can't hear where the guy is creeping up on you.
Well, yeah, for me, I'd just put, like, if I was in the Polaris and I saw this rock up, I'd just be putting everything on the Mantis to get the hell out of there.
Absolutely. With two Sentinels attacking, basic jamming from two different directions, the Polaris now has to be aware that the attack can come from two different directions, or if you're being exceptionally sneaky, which the Eclipse allows you to do, you come in from a third. So you're watching the two directions you're being jammed from, and all of a sudden there's a blip on the radar as you pick up the stealth, and they're a couple kilometers behind you and screaming in at full speed.
If you were not wanting to change the crew size that much, I would probably swap one of the Terrapins for a Mantis and only have one Terrapin. Because I think they're fairly armored, the Terrapin. But again, you could just get a second. You know what I mean? Like, if you didn't want to increase the crew size, that is. But
yeah, and I think as I alluded to, is like once it gets to the combat phase, the Terrapins are absolutely secondary.
Yeah.
The trick with the Terrapins is to pin this thing down in the first place.
Yeah, they're trying to find it essentially,
which is something,
aren't they? Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, something to consider too with the Sentinel, and I think you just said this, Badgers, but I want to focus on it, is that you have a ship platform that's not ideal speed-wise. It's not ideal. It's not going to sneak up on a Polaris, but it does have that. It has multiple ways that it can address the capabilities of the Polaris. The E-Warfare packages, the EMP missiles, which even though, it's not necessarily going to completely disable the Polaris, if you can take down some systems, coolers, if you can focus on its jump capabilities, you have the time and the ability to get that Mantis into place and more securely. And then you just have the sheer tankiness of it, the ability that it has redundant systems. So if it is getting hit hard, it can stay in the fight.
It's also got size 5 guns, which are good against the larger ships as well. So, I just want to float this idea, and you feel free to destroy it. I'm seeing 2 Eclipses there. I just want to float the idea of 1 Retaliator instead of 2 Eclipses.
So,
because of the turrets and stuff on it as well.
I thought about that purely because a Retaliator is going to be 1, cheaper to operate, and 2, can self-sustaining. Because this fleet is pretty much self-sustaining except for the Mantis and the Eclipses, right? I mean, you have the ability, you have quality of life features on them to be able to keep a crew out searching. The only reason I went with the Eclipses was purely because, 1, it's the size and ability to hit out of a small silhouette signature, and then 2, it was the ability to have the redundancy and multiple attack vectors.
True.
So if you have 1 attack vector, you know what to defend, what direction to go is the opposite way. Like Badgers was saying, if you're being jammed from 2 locations, you don't know what's behind, what's coming from those locations. With that small silhouette, I think it just gives you the flexibility of, if the Polaris is escaping, you can come in with the second Eclipse, hit it, at least slow it down for the other one to come in and finish it off.
Yeah. For modern warships, one of the most deadly things you can have when you're dealing with missiles is something called a multi-axis raid. And a multi-axis raid is exactly what Essay's just described. Threats coming from different angles. Now, the way ships are designed, and the Polaris will be like this as well, there's going to be an angle on the Polaris, even as a small ship. I mean, obviously, with the torpedoes, the big ship is don't be in front of it. But for a small ship, there's going to be a place where there's a sweet spot. It's the maximum number of turrets, plus its missile turrets, and it's presenting you a reduced silhouette, so it's not giving you as big a target. And that's probably straight at you, right? Whereas if you do a multi-axis raid, you've got to turn away from that. And now you're having to split all of your turrets between 2 or more threats. And, let's say you could get every turret pointing down range ahead of you. If you split that, you've instantly reduced, before you take accuracy, jamming, missile size, speed, anything like that, you've instantly reduced their chance to stop. by 50%.
Yeah.
Which is massive. And then you throw your jamming and everything else out, and then you do like point blank non-lock-on attacks, so it doesn't matter what they do with chaff. You're not locked on, you're just dumb firing.
It's a really hard capital to counter because it's fast. It's got like those torpedoes are just like if they you're gone. It doesn't matter who you are. Like if they rock up and you're like, right, I've got a shot on an Aurora, I'm gonna freaking take it. You know what I mean? Because like that thing's just another one gone. Like those torpedoes are just such a deterrent. It's kind of scary, and yeah, it's just
you have to get it fast.
I struck. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if this thing it's gone. Yeah, it's either gonna get you or it's gonna get gone. Yeah, it's a tough one. All right, go ahead.
One last thing I just want to say: a fleet like this, and I know someone's gonna probably mention this in the comments. It's small by intent, but this would have to be an experienced set of crews that working very well together that train on doing this, because it is going to be extreme. Like you were just saying, it's going to be extremely difficult to take one of these out, and you have to do it quickly. If you don't do it quickly, it's going to get away or it's going to eat you.
I think that might be my little bit of worry with this is that there's not enough guns, so it requires you to kind of surround the Polaris. So like if you're coming at it as a group, you kind of got to get in and around it. But if you can't get around it, I do think it's going to get away because there's only really 2 size 5 guns and then some torpedoes. So
yeah,
it's
well, I hit the torpedoes are the main focus of this. If those torpedoes on target, then it's over.
Yeah. So all right, let's see what Badges did. All right, babe. Oh, no, this is mine. All right, so we're doing mine. So, I kind of did a double redundancy with the Mantis and that's an Antares, by the way. And then I thought, well, you know, I could almost drop it to 2 Antares, to be honest with you, because then it's at least able to do some damage. Because the Mantis just doesn't do any damage. I only went with 1 Terrapin and 1 Eclipse for very similar reasons to what SA did to find it, and then also assist with the damage. And then I just went all out size 5 turrets to you know come in at multiple angles and just you know it takes out 1 Redeemer. Who cares? We've still got 2 more. That was kind of my thinking. Just overwhelming. You know, you'd only need 3 people in each Redeemer, and that's kind of when I come out and all right, now rip me a new one.
Badgers.
No, I don't think ripping you a new one at all. I think you know that the core of that again is the Ace and the whole of that Eclipse, and I really think kind of high speed runs detected at the last minute, point blank, dumb fire. Because then all the chaff in the world isn't going to help you. You either shoot it out, or I miss, or you know it hits. Those are your 3 options. You know, your Eclipse there to do some real damage and to start taking the crew's focus from fight to survive.
If you kind of went between mine and SA's, you could probably drop 1 Redeemer and add a 2nd Eclipse type of thing, and that's kind of halfway between the 2. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think basically you're in a DPS race there between the Retaliators, the Redeemers and the Polaris.
My thought process was like if they're distracted by the Redeemers, the Eclipse can kind of come in and, you know, final.
No, I mean that's what you would want to do, right?
Donkey punch.
You're not going to put the Eclipse out in front.
Yeah.
You're gonna sit it off to the side. I mean, what I like about yours is it's clear. So you're going to slug it out. That's what your fleet is built to. You're going to slug it out, take out as many turrets as possible, try to work down the engines. Hopefully the Eclipse gets a shot off on the rear in the engines and propulsion. The thing so you're going to be in the fight for longer, but the one thing that I like about this fleet is that Antares, you know, if you're going to be in the fight longer, that Polaris is going to get off that fighter. All right. So you're not dealing with just a Polaris, you're dealing with 2 ships. So at that point, that Antares can break off and has the ability to disable that fighter, or at least to slow it down enough, and enough firepower to be able to, hopefully, as soon as it pops out of that bay, just wipes it out. So I see perfect sense in what you're doing. The only thing that I would say is the Redeemers, although they bring a lot of firepower, you're intending to go toe to toe. So that's the only thing that we don't know yet what the Polaris can do, but that's going to be, a rough slug.
I'm assuming that they're you know, they're usually quite maneuverable. I know people look in game right now, but in game they're very nerfed. If you go back to the PTU performance before they heavily nerfed them, these things are quite mobile. So I'm expecting them to a bit of dodge and weaving, put it that way. But we'll see. But now I've kind of seen yours, I probably may consider dropping a Redeemer and adding Eclipse instead, or like I said, maybe a Retaliator. But I do like the redundancy idea you had. I think that was pretty cool. I almost would like to do some testings between the Mantis and the Antares. Like, would it be better with 2 Antares or 1? But I went with 1 of each, just so you had a bit of variety. And when I mean variety, you've got like that solid, more long range, lock it down, but then you've got one that can at least fight a bit. So the Mantis and the Antares are probably looking after each other in that regard, if you get what I mean. Hanging out a little bit out of the fight potentially as well. But yeah, Badges, your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly that. I think this is, like you said before, this is the DPS race with the Polaris. And what's really interesting here, just thinking about this from the Polaris's point of view, is exactly what SA said, is that at some point you've also got to start stressing about what's in the hangar. Because it could be a terrapin, it could be something that helps it find its prey, right? But it could be something exceptionally effective as well, and all of a sudden your whatever Antares, Mantis, whatever vessel you've got bringing a QED is now potentially being hunted. I mean, it's not good news for the Polaris pilot who's now going off after the QED, but hell, that's why they earn flying pay, right? But yeah, I mean, that's it. It's interesting. I think, you know, if the Polaris slams one of the Redeemers first, the Polaris gets out of this. If it doesn't, then, you know, I think the way that you would really assist that is a Sentinel and try to interfere with its ability to A, see what's coming at it, and B, when it does, you know, because those 2 missile turrets are going to be scary depending on the salvo size that they start putting out.
I think E-Warfare
you know,
in general is going to be pretty scary, but we just don't know enough about it yet. And I think that kind of speaks to the fact that there's only 1.5, and when I say 1.5, I mean the Sentinel and the missiles and the Defender, and that's it. So we just don't have enough ships to really say how strong that's going to be. But yeah, I think it'll be popular nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, should we move on to yours, Mr. Badges?
Yes? I went a little bit mental, and apologies, yeah, absolutely, for those that were expecting a Perseus, because there isn't one, so sorry. I tried to go at this a little bit. I've got at this a little bit strange and a little bit stage left. So
you're going to go in and board them, from what I can tell. Idea. Yeah, okay.
So the idea here is that you effectively load out your Hurricanes with distortion weapons. And the idea is that from range, you get in, you nuke the shields, and then you just completely disrupt the Polaris's ability to fight in any useful form at all. So, you know, you disrupt its engine, shut down the turrets, you know, try and hit the scanner, and all that sort of stuff. And the idea here is first, the Sentinel gets in, it disrupts the, if it can, the Polaris's ability to target. The Hurricanes swarm it. Mantis at max range, stopping it from running. And then once it's getting to the point where it's struggling to fire back, the Hurricanes can close. They will then, you know, shut its engines down, allowing the Legionnaires to close. And with the crew size of the Polaris, 2 Legionnaires is going to really make it worry. And if you start to lose this fight, bringing a Legionnaire in early is going to be enough that the Polaris goes, crap. Now we need to worry about boarding. And it's almost that psychological element of, you know, when you're in a straight fight, everyone just sits in the turrets, and they sit in the turrets until either they can't anymore, or, you know, you've won the fight and you're out of it. Whereas now, as commanding the Polaris, you're there going, all right, how many people have I got available to board, or to repel boarders? Do I need to start taking people out of turrets? You know, because if you neutralize a turret and the guys go, I can't move the turret, it's neutralized. Go get your armor, get a weapon, get to the airlock. I've 100% neutralize that turret because there's no one in it now.
For me,
and sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just gonna say there's only one thought that I would change, actually, to be honest with you, and I would drop the 4 Hurricanes and go with 3 Redeemers with distortions, because they're size 5, so they're better against a bigger ship, where size 4s are ship-to-ship weapons. So the size 4 weapons on the Hurricanes are just not going to be as, size 4s and size 3s are not going to be as good as the size 5s off the Redeemers, but it takes the same number of people, plus the ships are a little bit more tanky, so they can take a bit more of a hit from the Polaris. That's the only thing I would change. And I think it's quite a solid plan.
Yeah, I mean, and to give the game its due, this came from Eve, where there was an outfit who started to take on bigger ships with much smaller ships who were designed to disable, not destroy. And I think, the other thing that worries here, if you start committing Polarises into an Org versus Org fight, and one of the Polarises you commit, they nick and turn against you, that's going to make any Org commander think twice about sending more ships in to play. Because A, how did they do that? B, what are our countermeasures going to be? And you completely disrupt their entire tempo of operations, because they're like, right, hold the Polarises back, hold the Perseuses back, hold the Idrises back. We got to make sure that doesn't happen again before we recommit. So yeah.
Don't know about USA, but I think he just admitted he cheated and stole ideas from another game. That's what I heard. You're what do you call it? You forfeit. Yeah, forfeit. Anything you want to add there? Anything you want to add there, Essay?
Oh yeah. I have opinions, and I want to point out 2 things to the viewers. First is that this is the most trolling freaking like literally people will just do this not even to take out a Polaris. They're just going to do they're just going to do it just purely to blind people for fun. But secondly, I also want to point out that of course it's the Navy guy that uses the Marines to actually finish the job. So no,
it's got you there. You got to.
What? Why do you think we have Marines? Good God, man. We don't do that up close and personal stuff. Our warfare is civilized.
Like, our job is to control them. Your job is to go get shot at. Nice.
Fire the torpedoes.
No, I like the concept. So the one thing that both X and I didn't have in our concepts was how do you actually take possession of the ship if you want to keep it intact? So you considered that in yours.
Yeah, agreed.
It's definitely something that needs to be considered. The only thing that I would say is that I would add something potentially in there to, even though I know distortion weapons could bring down engines, taking them out entirely, even though you'd have to repair them, replace them, tow that ship, I think is probably your best bet for keeping that Polaris stationary, even if you're boarding. Because if you're manned with a human crew and that crew is well trained and it's their ship, they're going to be prepared for that boarding action, and it's going to be a slog. If they are, if you have the ability to take out their engines, they know that they're done, and they see the boarding craft. Then they're going to potentially say, "Well, we're sitting ducks. Let's figure out. Let's what do they call it? Parlay. Let's parlay."
See, that guy's
a naval term.
And I know I'm just making this up on the fly, but maybe that's something we should add to this show. Is after we've shown off our 3, we then go back and show what we've learned from what each other has done, and actually build one together. That might be a thing we could do in the past. We'll talk about it after the show, but just keep that in your back pocket, because I was just thinking, I'm actually sitting here looking at things I learned from SA's fleet, things I have learned from Badger's fleet, and what I would take and then put into to correct it. Because like I'm looking about, like, how I said about the Redeemers, I'm also thinking, what if it was like 2 instead of the Hurricanes, it was like 2 Redeemers and 3 Eclipses. Like that would work as well, like really well. I don't know what you guys think, but like I'm just starting to see, like, merging all 3 of the ideas together, you're getting those redundancies, and do you get what I'm trying to get at? Like it's more perfecting it, if you know what I mean. And that's why I think we do it this way, is because every time we do it, we learn a little bit from each other. Oh, I know I do, and I hope you gents do as well. And hopefully the viewers, when they watch, they do the same as well. And we have said this before, do one, I should have said this at the start of the episode, do one yourself before you watch the episode, but yeah. I know it's
No, it's really easy. I mean, you'd be pretty annoyed if you got a Navy guy and an Army guy together, and their solution was take the maximum number of crew in a Polaris, put them into eclipses, and then go screw the Polaris over. Because, I mean, that's the obvious thing, right? Is just take as many eclipses as you can, and or Battaliators, and just torpedo it to death. It doesn't take much to think that. Also, I mean, just looking down the road, I think access to size 9 torpedoes is going to be restricted in a whole bunch of ways, not just monetarily. Like, you're probably talking millions per torp. It's going to be rep gated and all that stuff, because otherwise it's just going to be ridiculous. It's like, take Eclipse, win, ta-da. But yeah, I think what I like about what all three of us have done this time is I think there's been an accusation every so often when we do command and control that we basically max out the server with the fleet and we'd be left with no one to fight because there's no players that can jump on the server.
I think mine was the biggest this time, which is unusual. It's usually on the smallest, but
I don't know. Badgers has Marines for boarding action though, so he would end up being
the yeah, and 10 per Legionnaire, is it? Something ridiculous. Yeah. So
it's interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I think you could do the same with bigger ships, and maybe I'll look at using the Perseus a little bit more, because potentially that's 3 Persei to a Polaris, and that's not going to be fun for them to deal with either.
So, SA, what would you like to hear from people below in the comments?
Oh gosh, one, the first thing is, what fleet would you use? Are you going after ships like this? Do you plan on doing for piracy? Do you plan on doing for like, does your org plan on doing mill-to-mill action? What is your plan? And again, involving the Polaris, and if you're running one, what do you think of these fleets? Like, are these fleets? Do you believe that they could take you out based off what we currently know about it? And we're dealing with some unknowns, but we kind of know where it's going to end up at this point. We know what a size 9 torpedo can do, so it's torpedoes. Yeah, we're in there. So, and then last but not least, these are 3 different approaches. Only one of them actually captured the Polaris. So, which direction are you going? Are you going to
kudos, Badgers,
to blow it up, disable it, capture it? Like, what are your, why would you do it? What would you do after? Now that you're the dog that caught the car, it's like, what do you do? And
being a capital ship, you are more likely to disable it than destroy it, realistically speaking. So we really did oversight that one, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, that's why we do this, like to learn and think, and hopefully pass that on to other people as well. So yeah, Badgers, what would you like to hear from the comments?
I mean, SA's covered all the key points. I think the only thing that I would say is for people to bear in mind is, if this is looking bleak from the Polaris's point of view, bear in mind that all of these fleets require considerable carrier support. I don't think one of these fleets could be supported by a single Kraken. So you're talking multiple Kraken sized fleet to support an attack of this level, or the Polaris operating so close to an org's home base that they can do this within a couple of quantum. So yeah, we are going to revisit this stuff when the game's scale increases, and boy oh boy is it going to be different.
Actually, believe it or not, both mine and SAs can go with a Kraken, because we've got long-range aircraft in ours. Yours is the only one that would require multiple Krakens. Both SAs and mine can get it. Yeah, because he's got Vanguards and I've got Redeemers, and they both are long-range escorts. And then we've got 4 other vehicles, and they fit on the Kraken.
The only thing that I would push back on with that is that having a Kraken without any fighters to defend it, you might end up having 2 Krakens just so that you have the ability to defend your fleet.
Yep. So yeah, and then again, what if we took out from a planet? We didn't actually specify that before the episode as well. So we do often try to leave a little bit of it open for creative reasons. But yeah, I guess my question would be: do you think any of these would work against the Polaris, as SA kind of said? And I think the last thing I'd ask is, did you learn from this episode? Because I know I did. It is hard, and I think it kind of shows you a little bit about when you are speculating. When you do it alone, it's in isolation, but when we do it together, you obviously saw that we all learn off each other. So it's kind of showing you why we tend to speculate in a group. It's a weird way to look at it or word it like that, but that is true. Yeah, when we speculate in a group, we always come up with better stuff than when we do it alone. And this is a way to kind of show that as well, I think. So yeah, I think the other thing I'd say is look forward to episode 2, which we're about to record right now, but you won't be seeing it right now. And we're going to do defending or protecting a Polaris, is I think what so we're going to take that same fleet that we just had each, and so I'll be doing my fleet defending my own fleet, and they'll be doing theirs, etc., etc. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and if you want to go the extra mile on Patreon, thank you for doing so. You get some perks and all that type of thing. Badges, where can people find you on the interweb?
I am on YouTube at Drinkers with Gaming Problems. I stream starting again. This won't be out in time, but on Sundays from 9 till 11 UK time. So come find us there. Drinkers with Gaming Problems.
And SA is too sexy. He's not on the internet for legal reasons. He's not allowed to be. His wife won't let him. All right, with that then.
All the hotness.
Yes. Anyway. All right, he's been Badges. He's been SA, and I'm in trouble with SA's wife. With that, and I'm Execute. Catch you next time.